Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my channel. Finally, I am back with more videos about recent events. I have just finished my own chess tournament and I'm right now back home and ready to update more videos about those exciting games. And today we're going to be talking about the 2026 Grand Chess Tour Super Chess Classic Romania 2026. This tournament is now past the halfway point. There should be 9 games in total, a single round robin, and already 5 games have been played. Tonight is going to be round 6, the time I'm recording this video. And this tournament has already given us a lot of incredible games, dramatic mistakes, big throws, and brilliant escapes. What makes this tournament even more special is round 5 delivered something even more unusual. In the game between Alireza and Firouzja, which right now is like the hottest topic of this whole tournament, I could say, when he is playing against Javokhir Sindarov, the World Championship challenger, Firouzja was forced to play from a hotel bed. So, after suffering an ankle injury, that is what the news said. And yes, seriously, while everyone else had to be sitting very seriously, at the board inside the tournament arena, Firouzja was literally lying in bed and playing classical chess. But of course, because due to injuries, even if he wanted to play at the board, the doctor said that lying on the bed is the only way if he wants to keep on playing this tournament. Sindarov had excellent winning chances in their game. And of course, Firouzja, due to those injuries, I'm pretty sure that his performance is not at the best, but still he showed a lot of great escapes and also great moves. Even though he didn't win a single game, he had a couple of draws and showed us some great defensing techniques. So this game, round number 5, the game that he played against Sindarov, he should have lost it. Sindarov had great winning chances and looked close to giving Firouzja a third loss in a row. But Firouzja defended stubbornly and survived in a game that continued long after all of the other games have finished. The whole scene immediately reminded us of some similar chess history, reminded many chess fans of famous moments from chess history, especially Tony Miles. If you guys are familiar about the story, he also played while lying flat on because of severe back pain. He had to lie flat and play against his opponent. So apparently legendary fighting spirit is in chess sometimes comes with a mattress. But of course, all of these examples show that these strong players, they have great fighting spirit, and this is actually a very important element in chess. And honestly, for fairness reasons, when maybe just a joke, maybe Sindarov should have been given a bet too. Can you just imagine 2 players playing against each other while lying on the bed? But I'm just saying, imagine trying to calculate complicated positions. You're sitting very seriously at the board, but while your opponent just simply looks completely relaxed, under hotel blankets. So even Firouzja joked about it afterwards, saying that fortunately for chess, you can lie on the bed. That might be one of the most chess player sentences ever said. And what makes this round even more crazy is that all of the 5 games ended in draws, but none of the games were a very boring draw. For example, almost every game had decisive moments. For Anish Giri, he spoiled a great position against Vincent Keimer. And we also have Prague missing a big chance against Wesley So. And Fabi still struggling to search for his first win of the tournament. Alright, but right now, even though all of the games, including Firouzja's game, says it's a draw, but the game is nothing close to boring. And today, let's jump into this game, played between Firouzja and Javokhir Sindarov. And let's just put aside the fact that Firouzja is lying on the bed. Just enjoy this whole game. Like, there were chances for the black pieces, but also the white side showed great defensive skills in the endgame. So the game starts with e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, knight f6, and we have this Italian game, bishop c5, c3, d6, castles h6, rook e1. So basically the opening is all theory, and this is like the Rule Lopez, the Italian games. These, especially these two openings, are right now what's like, how to say it, like 90% that will happen in those top grandmaster games. And here, like h6, rook e1, all of these moves are completely fine. Short castle, knight bd2, and bishop b6 back. Bishop b3, those like a5, threatening, well, at some point, a4 ideas. So here Firouzja plays knight f1, but like this opening, I'm just going to say that, as you can see also by the time usage, both sides aren't spending any time. They're just doing what they should do, those very like basic and common opening maneuvers. This knight should go to g3 definitely. Knight f1, knight g3 is a very like widely known way of maneuvering this knight to the side where it has more counterplay. So knight f1, bishop e6, bishop c2 back, knight d7. So at some point, maybe like rook e8, knight f8 ideas or something could happen. And then here knight g3 was played, rook e8, and here d4. So Firouzja is right now opening up the center and pushing this pawn, questioning black, what is he gonna do? And basically here black doesn't have any other option but only to take on d4. Because if he doesn't take, then d5 is going to be allowed, like it's going to be unstoppable on the very next move, and black is going to be in some trouble. So here after e takes d4, knight takes d4, and here Sindarov plays knight de5. So this is his idea. And actually, I could say that Firouzja, he played a very successful opening. He had a slightly better position right now, and his time usage is also a little bit better than Sindarov's. Like, he has a little bit more time, and the position right now is quite comfortable, as you can see on White's point of view. So after knight de5, here Firouzja plays this move, knight takes e6, which is a mistake. But sometimes it is hard for you to evaluate this position, because right now this structure is no longer like a balanced pawn structure or anything. Basically, you have to rely on more accurate and deeper calculation. And here the best move is actually to play knight df5. I'm not going to say that this is a very hard move or impossible move that humans cannot find, but you do have to calculate what will happen after d5 ideas, and after e takes d5, takes. After the queens are off the board, like this. But I mean, this is completely fine after all of these exchanges. Bishop goes back in f4 ideas maybe. But of course, when you're playing in the actual game, you have many thoughts coming up in your mind, and you have to calculate many different variations. And here, after like 10-minute think, Firouzja played this move, knight e6, which is considered as a mistake, but definitely not a losing move or something. It's just that here, White doesn't have to be afraid or doesn't need to be in a hurry to gain the bishop pair advantage. Because the bishop on e6 is actually not a good piece. It doesn't really attack anything. And then here knight df5 gives black, like if black were to take, then after knight takes f5, this would be a very favorable position for the white pieces. So here actually maybe Firouzja got a little bit like hurried. But after knight e6, f takes e6, and here he played this move bishop e3. Which right now it's still fine, I could say, but gives black the slight initiative. And after bishop takes e3, rook takes e3, the point is that here this light square bishop unfortunately is a really passive piece being blocked by its own pawns. And actually this structure, I could say, is much better than compared when the pawn is on f7. So black here, Sindarov plays rook f8, now gaining advantage of this open f-file and creating some like ideas of maybe in the future going queen g5 and then launching an attack on the king side. And here Alireza plays queen e2, king h8, moving the king to safety, rook f1. At some point, maybe f4 ideas is going to happen, but here Sindarov plays queen g5. And as you can see, that black is pressing really hard on white's position, even though the EVA bar still says this is a completely fine position. But definitely, as you can see, black's pieces are more flexible and more well placed compared to white's really passive, especially minor pieces, which basically the bishop and the knight don't even know what they're doing on c2 and g3. And here Firouzja noticed that he needs to change the position, and he first of all needs to prevent knight g4, and that he plays h3, very logical. Sindarov decides to gain space on the queen side and plays a4. Alireza here plays b3. Now this move is not the best move, but I can understand because after b3, it first of all changes the structure, opens up the a file. Well, of course, if black takes, white is going to take with the bishop, but at least this bishop now have some counterplay on this diagonal and attacks the e6 pawn. So here, after bishop takes b3, rook e8 to defend the pawn, and here Firouzja decides that he wants to simplify the position, and in this case, this is the correct response. Here, he played this very accurate move, queen h5. Showing great understanding that if this position turns into an endgame or in a position without queens, it will be easier for the white pieces to defend. And here Sindarov has to take on h5. There's no better solution to this move. Knight takes h5, g6, knight goes back, and here knight d7 was played. Now obviously this position black is slightly better due to the better pawn structure and also the better knights, because these two knights can come to c5, e5. Compared to the knight and the bishop, definitely they're more active, but white can still hold on. And here f4 was played. Firouzja says that he can no longer go right, and he is aiming for some f5 ideas in the future, which makes sense because for a human, it is really depressing or hard to keep to stay in defensive mode for the whole game, and sometimes you do need to find counterplay, even if it's not the best move. And here Sindarov plays knight c5. This is the plan that I've just mentioned. Knight e2, king g7, h4, rook a8, and here h5 was played. g5. Obviously, it is no good for black to take on h5 because now there's f5, and this position after e takes, and I could say that due to this very bad pawn structure, white will have great comeback chances. So here, after h5, g5 was the best move indeed, but still f5 is possible. Now ready for the computer. The computer doesn't like this move and doesn't love white's position, of course. But here, what can you play for the white pieces? Well, you could play g3, but then white has to keep on waiting, and what black needs to do is to slowly improve his position, maybe even king f6 makes sense. And here rook f2, king e7, there's nothing that white can do. There's no obvious plans, and sometimes when it comes to those positions, when you don't have obvious plans, it'll be really hard for you to proceed because you have to calculate. And sometimes if you're relying on pure calculation without any understanding or direction in the position, it could be really hard. You'll definitely spend a lot of time, and sometimes it could lead, if you spend a long time thinking, it could be a blunder that you play. And here f5 was played, even though the computer doesn't like it, but in human eyes, this definitely opens up diagonals and files, gives white much more chances than compared to just simply waiting. And here after e takes f5, knight takes b3, a takes b3, and in this position here, Sindarov plays rook a e8. Because white structure is way too bad, and here, even though the pawns are pushed really high up the board, and there are always some g4 ideas, but the rook is really passive, and here, as you can see, Sindarov did show that how to improve his advantage in the game. Rook e8, knight g3, knight e5, and here rook a1. gaining control of the open file, but basically you can't really attack anything. And then here after knight g4, rook a4, check, knight goes back, knight f6 here was played. Now this is a mistake, but it's very logical because it attacks the pawn. A slightly better, more accurate move is to play knight e5, but I think it doesn't make a big difference. Knight f6 is fine, rook a7, but as you can see here, Firouzja did find the best reply to it and shows that why knight f6 is an inaccuracy. Because now he attacks the pawn. Compared to knight e5, if he goes rook a7, now unfortunately, black can play this move g4, and after takes, g3, check, king goes up, and as you can see, this king will have this f6 square instead of like in the game where he played knight f6, and now after rook a7, if he plays g4, now, well, for white could take, but also there's this idea of going king f2. But of course, it's a very slight difference, and when you're playing in the actual game, it's really hard to decide which one to play. And after rook a7 here, rook c1, rook takes b7, rook takes c3, king f2, knight takes h5, and here black is now up a pawn. But the position is still unclear because white does have this outside pass pawn, like it could become a pass pawn if black were somehow to get rid of, like if white will be able to get rid of that pawn. So at least right now this b pawn does have the chance, does have the ability to prevent this pawn from ever pushing. And with this d pawn, since it is very close to white's king here will play a very important role in defending this pass pawn from pushing too high up the board. So here after knight h5, knight e3 was played, knight f6 back, and here king e2. Now it's very important not to go g4 because simply after d5, you allow black's pawn to keep on pushing. And the point is that if you play king e2, now if black were to push d5, you can play king comes over or b4 or something. If he goes d4, now there's knight d1. If he goes check, now there's king d3 to take this pawn on d4. So after king e2, h5, king d2, knight e4 check, king goes back, and here, rook c1, but when it comes to endgames, those, it's really hard for you to play the best computer moves, and this slight inaccuracies all make sense. Rook c1, b4, king f6, but still the position definitely, it is black who is the side that is going to play for the win. But Firouzja says that even though he is he showed that even though he is the side who is down a pawn, who is the passive one, but with his perfect and great defensive moves, he can still draw this. And after king d3, king e5, knight d4 check, king goes to d5, and then here he gives another check. There's a repetition, but of course Sindarov rejected. Instead of playing king d5, which would be 3 times repetition, he instead plays king f4. But again, even though this move does look very scary because it's very close to the g2 pawn, but now after rook takes c7, suddenly, as I've said, the b4 pawn has become an outside pass pawn. And this is the most important thing that white can still draw this game. Because this pawn is actually pushed really high up the board, similar to these two pawns. And it's very easy for the pawn to keep on pushing. So in the game, Sindarov plays a check, king goes here, and rook g1, threatening to take the g2 pawn. But of course, it is impossible for white to defend the g2 pawn. But again, why does white need to defend that pawn? So Firouzja doesn't worry about it, and he says that he is just going to push. b5 doesn't think about anything. This is his only way of drawing this game. If b5 still loses, then this game just loses 100%. All the other moves just loses if b5 doesn't hold to the draw. So after rook g2, king c1, rook g3, black is still desperately trying to create counterplay, but Firouzja doesn't give him a single chance and plays king b2. It is important here not to play b6. This is still a draw, but after rook b3, this rook gets behind the pawn, and there's no reason, it is not necessary for white to allow that. Just play king b2 as played in the game. And here, black can't really do anything. If black were to push, then even white will have chances now. Because as you can see here, white is, like, if you keep on pushing, white can play rook h7 here. And then, I mean, this is still a draw, I could say. But after king goes down, black can give, like, a lot of checks. In the end, it's still a draw, but white will have some chances if that pawn ever gets to b7. So, of course, Sindarov knows that he can no longer win this game, and he needs to stop now and just allow this draw, the repetition. And after check, check, king goes back. Here we have three full repetition, and after rook g2, a draw was agreed. So this game, actually, it was the longest game in round number 5, and it is also played in the most interesting and unusual way in this whole tournament, and for a very long time in chess history, I could say. But this game, again, this is not a boring game. Even though, as you can see, we were in the endgame part, or in the position where the queens were off the board pretty early, but the endgame and the defense that Firouzja had played were all pretty instructive, and black did have some chances. But again, in endgames, it is really hard for you to increase your advantage when you have to play like a computer. So yeah, this game is actually very instructive, but also sometimes you can see that chess players, they have great fighting spirits, like here Firouzja. Even if he had great injuries, he still fought through this whole game. And yeah, we can learn a lot of things from this game, chess techniques, but also those fighting spirits that we can learn. So yeah, this tournament still there are 4 rounds left. Firouzja, even though he only drew like 3 games and lost all the other games, but yeah, he can definitely learn a lot of things still. He also said in the interview that he learned a lot of things. Like when you're playing in a tournament, sometimes results are not the most important thing. The important thing is that you can learn no matter what openings or what endgame techniques. Like, it is just like if you play more games, you can always learn from a game if you have great reviews of them. So yeah. But right now, I hope you guys enjoyed my recap of this game, and thank you guys for watching this whole video. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video with more recaps of those great games. Bye!